Hello and welcome to the Association for Coaching podcast. My name's Darren Robson and I'm your host for this health and wellbeing series. Today, I'm really pleased to have Alex on the call, and Alex is going to talk to us about discovering your natural talents and natural talents. So Alex, first off, if you could pronounce your first and surname correctly, that would be really brilliant.
Hi, Darren. Thanks for having me here. My name is Alessandro De Giacomo. So as you could hear from it, I'm Italian and I'm based in Germany, in Munich. I lived in various countries in Europe throughout my career, particularly quite some time in the UK, actually.
Fantastic. Well, Alex, it's really good to have you on the show. Let's start off with you. So tell us a bit about your career, how you've got into the world of coaching, and why natural talent is so important to you.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Germany in an Italian family, as I said. Later on, I did some studies in Italy. And through some internships, I ended up actually with a first job, permanent job in the UK. I built my career in account management in an IT company and in a telecoms company later on. So during that experience, I had the chance to have a really good coach and I learned a lot about myself. It helped me to actually develop a lot and take on new roles and really develop my career with great successes, I would say, for me. So that was really inspiring. And it stayed always in the back of my head. I was always thinking, oh, that's something that I actually love to do. And it matured. I think I nurtured this interest for coaching for many years. And I guess I had the chance to integrate some of the coaching knowledge, basis, foundations into more and more into my daily work. And this is how at some point it matured. It just grew into a decision to do it myself.
So when did you first train and become a coach then?
I became a coach in 2018. So not so far away. Also seeing myself as a very young coach. I'm also active as a coach with young professionals. That's who I love to work with, and with startups as well. Yeah, and so I got trained in the UK in a really good coaching and training organization based in Oxford, actually.
Fantastic. And so where is your interest, in natural talent come from? And from your perspective, what does that mean?
Sure. My coaching was inspired by the story of a lobster. Yeah, I founded my own business. It's called Lobster Coaching. And the story is that if you imagine a lobster is, you see this really hard shell and strong animal, but actually in the inside, it's a very soft and mushy animal. So it lives in this carapace and this really hard shell, and it grows inside it. So at some point, it reaches a limitation of growth. So it can't grow. It feels a lot of stress. And so this stress signal puts it under pressure. And the animal has to go under some rocks, protect itself from predatory fish. And there it breaks the shell, gets out of it, and it slowly builds a new, more comfortable and bigger shell to continue the growth afterwards. And so this cycle of basically getting out of the shell, building a new one, it repeats itself many times during the lifetime of a lobster. And that was really inspiring because I went through change so many times in my career and in my life that I thought, this is how I want to help people. And that's where natural talent comes into place as well. So my interests are mainly, I summarize it into 4 Ps. For me, it's 4. For some, it's 3 or 5. For me, it's 4. It's passion, pleasure, purpose, and people. So I've always tried to achieve these things or live by these things. And people is one of the major of these 4. So I love people. I love to observe people. I love to engage with people, speak with people, exchange, and getting to know them, understanding them better. And through coaching, I had the pleasure to enable people, empower people. And so this is how I got in touch with natural talent. So really trying to unravel what people need naturally from a behavioral perspective. And in that, actually identify what their natural talent is.
So what are some of the tools or approaches that you use to help people to start to understand and unravel their own natural talent then?
It's mostly based on the slogan as well that I have, which is learn, evolve, and achieve. So I start in a coaching journey, I'll start really to understand how does a person learn and what drives a person. Then what triggers curiosity for a certain person and why does it? So what are these flow moments that a person finds itself in? And how are these flow moments actually triggered? What kind of environment is the person in where it actually flourishes and unravels all this ability to perform with its skills, with its experience? Because let's remember that often talent is interpreted as something which are softer hard skills and experience, so stuff that you really find black on white on a CV. But natural talent goes much further. It's about really identifying what connects heart and mind. So, what engages a person more? What is the curiosity that gets triggered? How is a person motivated? And how is all that connected to fulfillment and creating happiness? The Japanese call it ikigai, right? So, my interest is okay, in this learning phase, how do we unravel this more consistently? And so, natural talent is around the awareness and expression of a person's behavioral needs and drivers. Yeah. So by going through this learn element, so understanding how a person learns, we get to a point where a person identifies its behavioral and motivational needs. When you identify these needs, you automatically create this awareness about how a person can be more authentic. And by being more authentic, a person finds pleasure, obviously. Isn't it like for you as well? Like the moments that you're in flow, that you're authentic with it, aren't those moments where you find more pleasure?
And on that, you've used a wonderful phrase about being in flow. So how do you help people identify those flow moments for themselves, and where they feel that they're in alignment with their own values or authentic? So what are some of the tools or some of the approaches you take to help people to get to that authentic, natural self then?
What is flow? Flow for me is clearly there are very clear definitions of flow, but it's basically when you do something and you're totally in your element and you forget, you lose track of time. And you're in a moment where your energetic vibration is really strong, really high. You are very focused, you're very concentrated. And so these findings or this awareness can be coached. It can be coached in a sense that you put it on various levels. You try and with your curiosity as a coach, you go and investigate what happens in those flow moments, what environment helped a person to be in those flow moments, and what energetic levels did it actually cause. So where did we feel it in our body that we were in flow? Where did I feel this energy? Was it in my heart? Was it in my gut? Was it in my head? It's very powerful when you create this kind of awareness in a person. And that's actually when you get to the next stage of the slogan of evolve, where people become more creative. The self reflection helps to then engage also into exploring new territories. So I have awareness now when my flow moments happen. So where else can I try this out? And just go with your intuition more. And as a coach, these are the situations where you can have some very interesting conversations. And I love to use challenge in this phase. In the phase of evolve, I love to use challenge. I love to take a person into the zone of uncomfortable debate and nurture more and more that sense of purpose. This awareness of flow nurtures really the sense of purpose in a person because you get hooked to it. You want to do it more and more. And if you're able to find more circumstances where this can happen, then you are going towards a more purposeful and fulfilled activity.
And when it comes to these zones and this flow state where you're very much in alignment and you've got that sense of purpose, if you use yourself as an example, where have you identified for yourself some of those zones where you're very much in that flow state?
I love this question, and I go back to the 4 Ps. I would say I'm a person that is very much nurtured by passion. So I am having flow moments and I'm the happiest when I find pleasure in what I do. And what I do is also driven by passion. And I automatically fall into my mission to do something by purpose. And I love helping people. I love what I do. I love to unravel this natural talent in other people. And again, the last P is people. So I do it for them. I do it for businesses as well and their culture. I love to make a difference in these areas. And that's where I see bringing value.
No, thank you. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that share similar sort of values to you in terms of that. I think a lot of us who find ourselves in the profession of coaching really love helping people and love helping people find sort of their purpose and passion. So I love your 4 Ps. I think that's great. The thing that wanted to bring it back to is from your own learning, from your own experience that you've shared about how a coach really helps you to sort of become more fulfilled. How does the awareness around natural talent help with both health and well-being and performance in an organizational sense? So how does getting more in line with your natural talent help you to be healthier, feel better, and achieve more?
Discovering what your natural talent is allows you to identify and get more awareness around what your personal behavioral needs are. What do I need to better interact with others, for example? What do I need to communicate more effectively with others? What do I need from an environment? Do I prefer to do multiple things at the same time, or would I want people to give me time to take a step back and just really analyze things into detail? So really understanding what drives a person, what motivates a person is key. And this is when you are going to be more authentic. And so accommodating these natural tendencies, because we have these in our DNA, it's character is built at very young age and it doesn't change much over time. So this is really deep in our DNA. And we have these natural tendencies and we need to accommodate them. The problem arises, and I think the issue around perhaps mental health issues arise when we adjust too much from what we think that the environment expects from us. But here, with unraveling your natural talent, you are allowed to discover how you can be authentic. And that ultimately leads to drive self-esteem. You become way more self-confident. And you also discover a new sense of purpose. So that improves mental health. It generates more happiness. And once you generate that happiness, it turns into a performance advantage automatically, because people find themselves that they are developing their career through this kind of coaching. They become more engaged in what they do, in new things they want to do, perhaps. So they feel more motivation. They increase those flow moments, so it happens more often. You're enjoying that much more. And imagine those collaboration situations with teams. So you are automatically more engaged in collaborating with others. And it has a really positive impact on performance of teams and businesses. So that's why I call it then, investing in this kind of coaching and investing in unraveling natural talents of individuals and teams is happiness on invest. That's how I call it. I love it. We shouldn't see it as return on invest. We should see it as happiness on invest.
Oh, I love that. So return on happiness.
Or like that, yes.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great phrase. ROH. There we go. You've invented a new measure. Although I think Bhutan and other places probably are looking at that as well. So some of what you're sharing there is that when individuals and teams are more in line with their natural talents, they feel healthier, they collaborate better, they perform better, is the sort of hypothesis, the underpinning hypothesis. What else are some of the issues that can be addressed and overcome by taking this approach to natural talent?
I would say there are two levels here. There is the individual level and there is an organizational level. And if I would say the top three of each, we mentioned already sense of purpose, and a missing sense of purpose is a key element on an individual level of issues that we need to try and overcome. Then the second one, I would say, is, I mentioned it already as well, which is behavioral adjustment. So we do a lot to fit in. We do a lot to fit in a team. We do a lot to fit in with a manager. We do a lot to fit in a culture of a company. The greater that is, the more we adjust and do a lot of effort in adjusting how we behave or how we act, how we take decisions, how we collaborate with others, the more this leads to stress and it leads to conflicts. It can lead to burnout. So it's quite serious. And the third one is, for me, on an individual level, disengagement. It leads to unsatisfied careers. Once you start feeling disengaged with certain tasks that you're doing, maybe a precise project or the role in itself, then that long term, that will lead into changing, I would rather say that will lead into unsatisfied careers, as I said.
Yeah. No, okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people will recognize, especially, at the moment through what we're experiencing across the world through COVID, is that sense of higher rates of stress and potential conflict and burnout. I think especially as people are sat at home more and more, aren't they?
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the organizational level. That's the disengagement is really well connected to the misalignment of employees at work. Because it leads then to misalignment of employees with a job, as I said, with a manager, with team, with the culture of a company. And so through that misalignment, employees will become less and less productive. And ultimately, we know by research that the number one reason for employees to leave a company is the reason of misalignment or misalignment with the job, the manager, the team, or the culture, particularly the manager. The second issue to be addressed, I think, on an organizational level is the turnover cost. Because due to this misalignment and on an individual level, on the fact that you're just for a certain period of time, but at some point you break. And so that leads to high turnover costs for companies that could be avoided, as well as high, and that's my third point, psychological risks, which leads to costs as well for businesses. There's a lot that we can work here together on an individual level and on an organizational level to make a better world for people.
Yeah, and I'll get to some more of the benefits on this in a minute. I think you've brought up a really important point there, both for an individual, but also from an organisation and corporate perspective as well. And the sort of analogy or metaphor that I've heard different people use is the elastic band. And actually, what I've just heard you talk about is that actually, if you pull that elastic band too far, eventually it snaps. And when it snaps, that has real negative consequence for the individual, for the team, for the family, for all sorts of different reasons. What have you learned and what do you observe in the people that you work with? What can they do to look after themselves and make sure that they don't get to that snapping point? And how do you help people identify that point where the way they're living their lives or the way they're running their career is so far out of alignment with who they truly are, their true purpose? How do you help them start to identify that? What are some of the tools you use?
So my role is to act as a talent catalyst. That's how I love to call it. But it's based on coaching, of course. And my method is to integrate the learn, evolve, and achieve framework, let's say. I haven't developed a patent for this framework, but it's what Lobster Coaching lives with. And the achieve part is quite key, in my view, to develop an impactful life and career with people, to make sure that this elastic band doesn't snap, really. So we need that kind of guidance, we need that kind of support, and we need to be challenged as well. And let's remind ourselves as well that those moments where we get stretched a bit are also those moments, like you remember the story of the lobster, where we can feel that little bit of stress and that pressure. And those are the moments where we grow the most. So we need to be challenged. And I help people to get in a safe environment, but getting out of their shell. So getting out of their comfort zone and put those actions into place to achieve the goal of nurturing purpose and finding pleasure in what they do. Because ultimately, my mission is to allow these people to become the best that they can be.
No, so that's wonderful. So if I use your lobster analogy there, actually what we're saying, so if I mix the metaphors of the lobster and the elastic band, actually what you're sharing there is that actually sometimes the elastic band does need to be potentially stretched and broken in order to break through to this next level of who I am as a human being. So actually, it's not always a bad thing for the elastic band to break or for the lobster shell to crack, because actually that's for the person to reach their next level of purpose, or their next level of who they should be in the world.
Perfect. It's perfect what you said, Darren. Exactly. For some people, there needs to be this break to break through, of course, as you said. For others, that moment of being in a really uncomfortable zone, actually it helps to see new perspective, to grow and try something new, and it enhances that awareness to increase again those moments of being more into flow and just identifying where can I do this more, where can I feel those sensations more.
And I also heard you talk about the fact that, in the way that you coach and work with people, is that you create a psychologically safe environment for them to explore and develop and grow and stretch, which I think is really important to mention as well. So that's good to hear. In terms of the benefits that you're seeing with the talent coaching and the reach of that talent coaching that you're doing, what are some of the sort of critical benefits for the people that you're working with and teams, if you're working with teams?
Of course. So we had a look at those. We just mentioned those issues, right, as well. And obviously, there are different strategies how to overcome them. But once you get there, the benefits stretch really from an individual level over to and up until really organizational and business level. So if I go through this domino effect on an individual level, the benefits are a chance to increase your happiness, and that through authenticity, through finding greater purpose, improving your well-being, your work-life balance, a chance to develop yourself personally and professionally, and listen more to those needs that you have naturally that motivate you the most. The benefits stretch then over to interpersonal level as well. So you're finding that you're enabling, as a coach, you're enabling those people to connect better with others. So it has an impact on improving interpersonal relationships, and again, knowing and unraveling what naturally somebody prefers and how the person prefers to interact with others, enable a person to be more aware and more authentic in connecting with others and communicating with others particularly. So that helps as well on conflict management side of things. Suddenly we're listening more to what we need and how it affects us. And it then sparks a conversation around, okay, so what do you need? What do I need? And how can we make an effort, both of us, in a relationship? And then the next level is on team level, right? Team and collective level. The benefits include if team members feel more engaged with each other, with a certain mission of a project, for example, then you improve considerably the quality of collaboration within the team. So it has a positive impact on the dynamics of co-creation, I would say, as well. On the team cohesion itself, again, we just talked about the relationship. So the team cohesion has a huge benefit here. And it then has an impact also on team agility and the performance of a team. And if you want to stretch it even further, you get, again, as I said, to an organizational and a strategic business level of benefits. So you get a chance of building what I call dream teams. As a leader, you have the possibility to really think about how we can design better teams and design better organization. For startups, it's a chance to intervene really early, creating those a duo of people that maybe create a startup, or a team of 4 or 5 that have an idea and need some buy-in from some incubators or accelerators. How do we build this kind of organization and team? What do we need to be aware of as a startup team, for example, in order to best interact with each other, and in order to understand how we take better decisions together, in order to understand how are we being creative. Creativity is a fantastic example. There's no such thing as being creative or not. It's just that naturally people have different tendencies of being creative. It can be expressed in many different ways. So as a business and on an organizational level, you have really a chance here to improve the work environment and its culture. So then it leads to having an impact on strategic results and achieving them. And it has also an impact on a business reputation, its image. So I think there's a unique chance for businesses here to really distinguish themselves a lot to competition and in the sector.
Yeah, wonderful. I think we'll all sign up to a lot of those areas you've outlined in those comments. Have you, in any way? So one of the things that's coming through on this series, as I've been recording it with the various different people, is the importance of daily habits. So, do you have any sort of top tips or daily habits that you recommend to people that are looking to identify their natural talents, or are there any tools that you've used yourself when you've been going through your own journey as a lobster, and to crack through your own shell? What are some of the tools you think that might be quite useful for people to consider?
I could give away a few. Yeah, of course. There are plenty of tools in terms of behavioral analysis, psychological tests, and there are so many out there. I work with a predictive index. There is DISC out there. There is Myers-Briggs. And any of these just have the possibility to shed light with people data, basically shed light on how you're wired from a behavioral perspective, how you're wired up from a cognitive perspective even. And that just creates this awareness. And I think it's a really useful tool to really understand where am I and what do I need and how do I act with others, for example. Then, and I think I see this as an outer perspective. From an inner perspective, personally, what helped me a lot is to practice mindfulness. So mindfulness, meditation, I can highly recommend. That's something that helps from a mindset perspective. It helps in your heart as well. It helps you on energetic levels. And then from me as a coach, I would say I highly recommend to get a coach, because a coach helps you to really increase that self-confidence, to have a space where you can really share. I think that's really important, especially now. During the pandemic, I had a coach myself because I had to have someone who I was able to share my thoughts, my reflections in a safe space. It allowed me to really go more deep inside me and really broaden up as well inside me. And a coach is able to facilitate you and do it systemically as well. It brings in the competences. So it's not just about tools, I would say, not just about methods, but having a person who asks you difficult questions, who asks you different questions that you would come up on your own.
Yeah, I think what's wonderful listening to you is I think that actually it's certainly not just about tools, and I'm not just asking for tools. I just always think for the listeners it's good to get a couple of those sorts of tips. But actually my sense listening to you is this is becoming a philosophy for you in the way that you live your life. It's embodied in all that you do. Hence you're talking about mindfulness and reflective practice. I've no doubt you probably do quite a lot of journaling and self-writing and self-narrative work by listening to you. So I think that's really the thing that I'm hearing, is that as part of this journey that you've gone on, it's really shaping your life philosophy as not only your coaching philosophy and how you operate as a coach, which kind of brings me on to the sort of final question really then for you is, what's your vision for what you're creating and how do you see it having a positive influence and impact in the world?
Yes, I can say yes, it has affected from a philosophical perspective how I live my life, but also how I work and what I love to do for a living. Yeah. So I had a question. I asked myself, how can I have a more positive impact on the wider context? So, considering social context, considering business context, perhaps as well, considering the environment and the planet. So, how can I have a more positive impact while doing something that I love to do? That is, I think, what you could see today in terms of what I bring as a value. There's a quote that a really important person in my life shared with me, which says, if you are helping somebody, you are awakening somebody. And I think this is my mission. My mission is really, I want to help people to be awakened and help them through change, through transformation. That's what Lobster Coaching stands for as well. I want to really help individuals, teams, and businesses to being able to express their natural talents, because that's how I see that they can become the best that they can be. And that's how I see that I can have an impact on people's well-being, society, the future of organizations, the future of leadership. I believe in a future of leadership, which is the next generation, more women in leadership. And I think that will lead hopefully to a more sustainable environment and to a better planet. So here is my vision.
Wonderful. No, I love it. And at some point, we'll definitely be looking to do a series around the whole sustainability, because it's something that's really dear to our heart within the AC as well, and something that we're really passionate about supporting. That's a really nice sort of end point, really, in terms of this interview. So if people would like to pick up on the conversation that we've started here today and want to find out more about you, where can they connect with you? We'll share links. Where's your best place to find out about Alex?
Yeah, and I would love to continue the conversation with anyone. So feel free. You can go onto my website. So it's www.lobstercoaching.com. You'll have the chance there even to take a quiz. So I have 3 different talent coaching quizzes that somebody can do absolutely for free. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn or email me at alex@lobstercoaching.com. On LinkedIn, you find me as Alessandro De Giacomo.
Well, wonderful, Alex. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people that will jump onto your website and have a look at your talent coaching quizzes. They sound really fascinating. Thanks ever so much for your time.
Thank you, Darren. I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Thanks ever so much. Take care.